All right, we're doing this, guys. Zach, I thank you for coming on to the show. I actually had a handful of recommendations to bring you on, and so I'm faithful to my followers, and I'm excited for this conversation.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here.
It must be weird being a marketing manager, and you have to, as being like a marketing manager, you have to find different avenues to advertise your product. And so this is, like you said earlier, this is your first time being on a podcast.
It's the first time being in a podcast like this. I've definitely been interviewed before. I've done something via Zoom or a phone call, but never in a studio quite set up like this, with a microphone quite like this. So it's a great first experience so far.
Yeah, like I said earlier, yeah, we got a long road to go. But like I was saying earlier, podcasting is becoming so popular, and you have to have very ingenuity and innovative ways to market yourself in today's world, because I'm sure you've learned there's like 20 or 30 different popular outlets where you could advertise your product.
Absolutely. And what I do love about an audio format is you still get some text put in, you have a description, you have a summary of the product, but you don't get the sense of personality through just straight words. I think audio, you get a nice sense of personality, who the person is, what they're doing. But you can also do work at the same time. It's not like a video you have to sit there and watch it the whole time. So I love the fact that you're pushing for this right now.
Yeah, and like most videos now, if you're watching a video that's not on your phone, it's usually just background noise to whatever you're doing on your phone at the same time.
Exactly. I remember when this thing first hit, and what was it? iPhones, or it was the Apple Store, when people were doing it while they were walking or running or in the shower, whatever they're doing, they just had something on the background. I think today, especially with COVID and everyone being more and more online, you have to do multiple things at once. And so trying to better yourself, podcast is a great way to do it, and just a great way to listen to it in the background.
Yeah, people come to podcasts. There's a stat that I found of, I think it was through Buzzsprout research, that over 75%, it was around that number, of people that listen to podcasts, they listen to them to learn something new, some sort of information. And it's less entertainment as like television, where they just want to kind of waste their time. People are listening to podcasts to actively learn something new and open their horizons.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, you saw Let's Plays get huge, right? And podcasts kind of follow a similar style. It's, I don't really care about the gameplay. I'd go out and buy the game. I just kind of want to hear the commentary. And that's kind of what podcasts is kind of like, getting rid of the middleman.
Yeah. As everyone knows, I'm all for getting rid of the middleman, because I'm a Bitcoin guy through in and through out.
I know who you've been talking to.
All right. So let's give some context to all the listeners for who you are and kind of your backstory, because I believe that's very important to the mission statement going forward. So can you give everyone a description of who you are, how you ended up in Vegas, and leading up to your position today?
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Zachary Zolowicz, for anybody trying to pronounce my name. I'm representing a company, Ludian LLC. We are an intelligent mobility and transportation consulting company. What that basically means in English is we work with city governments, transportation agencies on implementing new technologies to make roads smarter, safer, more efficient. On the flip side of that, we'll work with tech agencies or tech suppliers and show them how to get into either U.S. market or how to get in with certain transportation agencies. With, again, the same mindset of making things safer, smarter, more proficient. How I got into this was my background. I'm from Colorado originally. Came out to Vegas in 2010. Then I went almost immediately to school in Reno, which has got a much better program than UNLV for anybody listening.
I have to say FUNR. I have to throw that in there in the middle.
I mean, that just spells funner, right? After that, came out here, worked with a variety of different companies, mostly on a global scale. And that ranged from working with influencers, working with business developers, always kind of in event planning or business development kind of sense. Started with that because I actually got into pro wrestling in college, and so I put on a couple of pro wrestling events, and that drove me down the event planning, the marketing kind of stairwell. And then before entering this position, I was director of biz dev for an agency in Vegas, which kind of gave me the opportunity to go around, meet a bunch of people, and really kind of network and see how big or how small the Vegas business community actually is. And then just kind of like happened to luck into Ludian, and I absolutely love it. I don't have a transportation background. Our CEO has over 30 years of experience in this subject, spanning from rail to air to road across multiple continents. And the amount of potential, the amount of money involved in it's almost recession proof. The transportation industry, and ITS, intelligent transportation systems, intelligent mobility, is a niche element of it, and it's still a multi-billion-dollar industry. So it's so opened my eyes, and the amount of content, the amount of what we're doing, and I love stuff like this. I'm not trying to go too off on a tangent, but I love being able to talk about something that's going to better somebody else and talking in a true B2B sense. I don't need to go in and sell something right now versus selling like a marketing service. I can go in and talk about the benefits of something. I can go in and talk about the value that something's added to it, and I can create a real relationship over time because I know I'm backed up by people who know what they're doing.
Yeah, well, transportation is something that's not going away, and it's something that just continually evolves over time. Like you see the most popular method of transportation before technology, was walking, and then it went to the horse, and then it went to the carriage, and then it went to like a bicycle, and then the motorized vehicle, and boats was somewhere mixed in there, and just continually evolves flight.
Yeah, now we're going back to scooters.
Back to birds, actually.
There you go.
That's funny. I like that. But before we touch on that, because I know we'll probably spend a big big amount on that, I'm really curious onto this pro wrestling thing that you're talking about. Is this pro wrestling as in like WWE, WWF, or is this pro wrestling as college athletic wrestling?
So me and a buddy, it's probably my sophomore year of college, diehard WWE fans, pro wrestling fans. One day I turned to him and go, "Hey, do you want to start a pro wrestling club?" And he goes, "F it." And I ended up calling around, and it turned out to be a school in Reno. And it was a very, very good school. So we called him up. A couple of the trainers there were actually TNA wrestlers. Some of them had tried out with WWE before. And so we started a club, funded by the University of Nevada for WWE style professional wrestling. And my whole goal that year was, as president of that club, the guy putting everything together, was I wanted to create an event on campus. So it took me about a year to put it together through everything else. I trained as a professional wrestler. I can't call myself a professional wrestler. I never graduated. I didn't get that far. The guys who were in our club, one of them's in New Japan, or was in New Japan. The other one has been super successful. The other one is still wrestling on the indie scene. So, I can't call myself a professional wrestler, but I've been in the ring. So I've taken a bump or two. But I wanted to take that platform and create the first professional wrestling event on campus. And we did. And at the time, we made it the largest attended wrestling event in Reno. I think we had about 1,000 attendees, raised a ton of money. We did it for charity. We did it for Northern Nevada Children's Cancer Foundation. And after putting that whole thing together is really what got me into the event scene. And then once I joined as an event coordinator with a company after college, I realized I don't like planning events. I like working with suppliers. I like, working with sponsorship, with the money element. Event planning is a lot of busy work.
It's a lot, yeah. So you liked more of the B2B aspect, as you said.
I love the B2B aspect.
Because you get to connect with the people who are working the deals on the back end. Right. And, it's nothing to say against the customer, but you could probably find more success, like you said, working with the different business partners throughout the various projects within the event. Exactly.
Like when I was my first position out of college after the professional wrestling tour ended, and I stopped doing that because I got hurt and I wanted to graduate. And then I've always said I'd go back to it, and I never did. There's actually a great school out here. I should look into it. Where was I? Oh, I was saying that my first job out here was working with a group called Action Coach. And so they were international business coaching. So they worked with people who bought business coaching franchises for a minimum $75,000, but then everything else that went into it. And so, they did conferences 4 times a year. And part of what I wanted to add to the conference, because we did everything that was done through them at the time, as far as registration, payment, everything was done paper. So these conferences were held around the world. So what happened is you'd have 300 registrations on paper from people over 70 countries, and that's their credit card information, that's their phone number, it's everything. You can't read that handwriting; it's terrible. And the amount of and the fact there's no security either. If you just drop a piece of paper, somebody has access to somebody's credit card, so security wasn't there. So I went out there and found an event app. And this is where I found I really liked working with B2B technology suppliers, was that event app cost us $1,000 per event. But through that event app, per event, I could create $50,000 worth of sponsorship. So that $4,000 a year event app could potentially turn into $200K of revenue.
Wow. So you're just finding just different avenues within there to profitize or monetize.
Exactly. And that's why I still love the event space. I love the trade show space, and it all kind of equates back together. Podcast, another great example. Where in the podcast, and I'm glad you have a video going as well, where else can I add some monetary value to it? You know, where else can it create value for somebody coming on my podcast? Maybe they want to put an ad along with their video or something like that. It's finding those little angles, find those nooks and crannies. I love doing that. It's you see me smiling, but it's like
grinning hard.
I know. It's just some people like talking sports. I like talking this.
Oh, I love business. I think especially our culture background loves talking business as well. That for those that listening,
talking about.
And Zach's also a fellow Jew crew member. Yeah. But yeah, for this I actually don't have the video. I was just taking pictures for earlier. I want to implement video down the road.
Okay,
but I'm such a technological monkey when it comes to AV. I'm still learning the process for it, but
dude, it's such a great skill to have.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. Like I was explaining earlier, I could have like an AV plug and it looks like a circle, and I know that I have to plug it into the circle, but for some reason my mind is like, this doesn't go there. So I have to literally look up YouTube videos and spend more wasted time on it. But yeah, as far as like podcasting goes, visual podcast is starting to become more popular just because of the social media aspects to it. And some people just enjoy watching people talk. Like I consume a lot of my podcast actually through video as well. And there's a little bit more monetization. Like you can have different ad placements in there, or you know, just sponsored brands, different aspects like that.
No, absolutely. And, you know, there's so many different platforms to do it on. I'm not sure what you guys use. I got turned on to a platform called Anchor.
Okay. Yeah. That's one of the most popular ones. That was like one of the beginning ones.
Hey, listen, I just needed something that played it for cheap, and then I can push it the rest of the way. And the fact that it allowed me for monetary stuff, that's fantastic. But any way you can start, I mean, I think, I'm sure you follow Gary Vee. It's just start producing something. The kind of mindset that you have to get into. Is his big thing is like, just put content out there, whether in the back of your mind you think it sucks or not. You're always one tweet, one Instagram post away from going viral and potentially changing your life. And we see that happen just time and time again. Yeah, exactly.
And I'm sure running like business social media probably has different perspectives as far as logistics and product placement and how you word your captions, and just different avenues to get your message out.
It's whenever you're posting for social media or anything, I take an event planning mindset to it. What am I trying to accomplish? And then how do I work backwards from there? And so there's different objectives for each type of post. You have call to actions, you have brand building awareness, you have ones where I want to prove likes on my webpage, or I want to improve traffic to my website. Or sometimes when it's B2B versus B2C, I just want to start putting out content like for people to read, so that when I go and talk to these people later, they go look and they research, like, who is this person? What are they doing? They can look through my content and go, oh, at least he has some sort of clue about what he's talking about. And that's a big thing. I love building thought leadership. When I used to work for an influencer, I worked for a group. He's actually a local event manager blog, Julius Solaris, who's considered one of the top. He might be the top influencer for event professionals around the world. And so when I was learning how to really push this content marketing, so to speak, and he's a master, and they are an absolute master at it. It's all about, creating that thought leadership. One blog, one podcast on its own is not going to drive you more often than not, it's not going to drive you a ton of business, especially a free one. But multiple ones where you can build a narrative about yourself, where you can build yourself up across a certain platform, across a certain subject, creates value. Sometimes it's not the CEO, the director, whoever who's actually going to hire you is the one who's looking at the content. Sometimes it's their subordinate, because they are too busy to really go through and do all this research. So the subordinate is looking for someone they feel comfortable enough to show their boss. And so the way you find that is through building content. I know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to burn you by you recommending me. Or I know what I'm talking about. You should feel safe about it. That's why some companies like, City of Las Vegas, City of Henderson hire outside consultants so they can show the community that they are doing the best possible work they can do and they're getting the best possible people on it.
Yeah, and sometimes you see too with politicians where they'll have like dual accounts. One's like their personal account, and then one's like their political self as well. That gets out two separate messages, but it's for the same product or person. You could say.
Oh, there's so many different ways to finagle a narrative. It's fun to find ways to do it. I am working really closely with a couple of people right now on a couple of projects. And one of the things that I point out to, especially new people in sales or new people in web development or business development, is create me a customer path. I want to get to point A. Tell me how many different ways from this website or from this source I can get to point A. And so you start creating all these different paths and you realize, okay, there's so many different narratives and I need to be able to account for them. Or if you're really smart, is I can lay different traps in each one to get them to either point A, or what I'm really trying to do is push point B through point A. So I'm going to let them fall through this one to get to that one. It just goes on and on and on.
Yeah, you almost beat me to the question I was just going to ask you. Is say what's the better mindset to go into it? Is it to have the objective that I want them to eventually spend their money in this outlet, or is it the Gary V method where it's like jab, jab, jab? You give information, and then you have your ask, which is your right hook down the road.
I think it totally depends on what you're doing. Gary V talks in a vacuum a lot of times, so you can't apply everything he says to your specific business. In a B2B market, I think it's more important to build the value of your company and build the narrative that your company knows what you're talking about. In a B2C business is you're trying to get conversions. Your whole idea is conversions. So a lot of marketers will hate me for what I'm about to say, but I think there's really two ways you can define marketing. Is you can define it as branding, or you can define it as advertising. Advertising is short term. Advertising is measurable, is reasonably measurable. I spent $100, I get Y result. I can do it. It's short term. I can turn it on, can turn it off. I can track it. Branding is long term, meaning if I have a name of my business, how much is that business name worth? For example, Nike puts a lot into their brand, right? If Nike stopped advertising, just sold the brand Nike, that brand alone is worth a lot of money. And that's long term. It's harder to measure, but it's important. And so you really have to build both up equally to get a successful business. But understanding where your narrative is, so when you're crafting content or when you're crafting a sales plan, or when you're bringing on a sales team, for example, building a website, anything that has to do that's talking to somebody else about your business, you really have to understand, what am I trying to do? What am I trying to accomplish? And it can send you down a rabbit hole. At some level, you just have to do it. You don't want to spend, you don't want to spend the entire time analysis paralysis, but you also want to have an idea of, okay, what am I trying to accomplish? The way today's marketing scene is going, for a while, you saw, especially for small business, a lot of them were getting into the marketing agencies. And I actually think the marketing agency method is dying because people want specialists. I can go on Fiverr and hire a web design specialist. That's all they do for half the cost I can hire an agency to handle my website. And so the way that you combat that is, well, no, what I really need is a project manager. I need a guy who can pull from all these different elements and understand what these path is to get to that next stage. So I can pull, there's not a huge difference between $500 a month social media and $5,000 a month social media. It's just the last person who sees the content before it goes live. So again, it's understanding who understands that path the most. So if you're looking at, I'm not saying that, there's some really great agencies, especially here in Vegas, but when you're looking at that, you're really trying to understand what you're trying to accomplish. Just saying I need to improve my SEO or I need to have a better website doesn't mean anything unless you know how to use it and you know how your customers are going to use it.
Yeah, when you think of agency, you just think of more bureaucrats that are in it, more levels that a piece of information or money or whatever idea kind of has to travel through, correct?
No, when I'm thinking of like you're talking about marketing agency?
Yeah.
No. I mean, in this town, I'm thinking of kind of what you would see on TV. A lot of what you'd see on TV. It's people walking in shorts, T-shirts. It's people throwing stuff at a wall. And, unless you're a ginormous agency out here like R&R Partners, for example, or you're a specialist agency, those who just focus on real estate or just focus on franchise marketing. Those ones who are general, we are a one-stop shop. We cover everything. There's a business out there. People want them, but at the rates that they were charging, they were charging clients at $5,000, $10,000 a month. And those rates I don't think are feasible anymore for the small business because I need somebody who really understands that one specific element.
So hyper specialization essentially is what people are looking for.
Exactly. And what I would tell people, it's much more cost effective to spend money on a PM, a central guy who understands these different elements. He may not understand how to do a web design, but he understands what needs to go into it and can manage whatever web designer you're using. So that way you can get the best possible deal, but you're also getting what you need. You don't always need a $10,000 website. Sometimes you just need a $2,000 website. Sometimes you just need a landing page. You have to have somebody who understands on how you do it. And how the hell did we get on this
Hey, I love the in-depth conversations. But just going on the tag of hyper specialization, when you just think of advancement of society, everything just becomes more and more niched down. You know, we're not out finding in a broad spectrum. We're not out finding new land anymore. You can't do that. You have to find these specialists who are digging in the ground, or these specific regions that know these specific niches. And that goes down to technology as well, as everything kind of like gets leveled down more and more. So you have to find people who understand that specific niche more in and out.
Oh, exactly. And bringing it back to Ludian, CEO Ian Machin has got 30 plus years of working in that space and has that specialization. To be fair, the U.S. is probably 20 years behind where the rest of the world is on this subject, even though the rest of the world is moving towards intelligent transport, smart cities and such. Having that expert, having that specialized person on your team adds so much value to your project PR-wise, adds so much to your project, the project itself. It adds so much to your team because now your team is learning from that leader, from a guy who knows his experience. It's what's the old saying? You give a guy a fish, you feed him for a day, you teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime.
For a lifetime, yeah. That's why they don't teach him how to fish.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think you touched the nail right on the head about the U.S. lagging in the infrastructure space, that we're about 20 years behind. I like the TV series Westworld, where it's like a very futuristic society, and not one scene was filmed in the United States. They all had to go abroad because of how far advanced they are in their infrastructure. And you see Trump even wants to do like $1 trillion investment in infrastructure because he knows how far behind we really are.
I mean, I don't know how much I'm going to comment on like the political landscape of it, but transportation as a whole and infrastructure as a whole is something that just, when you're in recession, it's something that you can easily put money into to get people back to work that helps out everybody. It keeps citizens safer. It puts dollars in people's pockets at every level. And part of the reason why the U.S. is so far behind the rest of the world in this particular subject is just geographically. You have some people in the UK, for example, are used to using public transportation. They're used to living in more condensed lifestyles. You and I are not walking across the street to go to the grocery store in summer heat. I mean, let's be honest. Most households have a car for each adult, which is not the same in the rest of the world. So there's some fairness, but the U.S. is trying to catch up, and the cities that are trying to do it are trying to catch up. Las Vegas, in particular, has one of the most forward-thinking RTCs in the country, who are usually very open to innovation or trying something new, or at least listening to something new. And so it's been a real pleasure. That's part of the reason why we made Henderson our U.S. headquarters, was our relationship with the RTC, and B, their willingness to try some of these projects like what we're working on, and to move forward with the rest of the world.
Can you expand on what those projects are, or more specifically, just what the RTC is doing as far as forward thinking?
Sure. So I can't go through every project just because there's some stuff that is confidential. One of the projects we're working very closely with the RTC is GOMED, which is the installation, and part of that includes the installation of autonomous shuttles in the medical district, so that people can run 24/7. The whole idea again is to make people's lives better, and also if we can cut down on carbon emissions while we're doing it, fantastic. Other projects like the one that I reached out to you about has to do with adaptive traffic, and the whole idea about adaptive traffic or adaptive signaling is, and we'll have to bring on Ian if you want to know all the technical stuff, or you guys can visit us online if you have questions about how it actually works. I'm definitely not the transportation expert of Ludian.
This is the basic idea behind it.
But the basic idea behind it is you're stuck at how many times you've been stuck at a red light?
And there's way too many.
Nobody around you, and you're still stuck at the red light because the red light's on a timer. And so the whole idea about adaptive signaling is it's interacting with what's going on around it, meaning that we're pushing cars through faster, and we're pushing them through at we're pushing through faster. We're letting the queue fill up not as much, and that all leads back to safety. It all leads back to fewer carbon emissions. To put it a step further, how many times have you been to a green light but you can't pull forward because the queue in front of you is too full, right?
It's true.
So what adaptive signaling, the second part about adaptive signaling, it's not just one intersection. It's a network of intersections. It's what's going on the freeway, what's going on St. Rose, what's going on Green Valley. How do these corridors connect with each other? And so if I release this one sooner, what does that mean to this one? Am I going to get a queue? Am I going to queue up? So it's that predictive analytics. And just because you put in that AI software, that adaptive software, that doesn't mean it's going to work automatically. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of trial and error. Each city's different. It takes a team to build. Going back to, not teaching a guy to fish is you have to, that's what we want to do. Our goal, while we would love to work with one group forever, there's going to be a multitude of projects. Our goal is, operations is key. Our main thing about Ludian is making people safer, is making it more efficient. So we have to teach operations too. Like, this is how you use the system. This is how to run it. Here's how to do project maintenance. Here's how to make it better. Here's how to tweak it. Here's what we should tweak, what we shouldn't tweak. It's trial and error, like anything else, but it's done safely and it's done with the end goal in mind to make people's lives better.
Yeah, I think efficiency was the phrase that stuck out to me. That's something that people preach all over. And I remember reading a stat that talks about, I don't remember the exact number of years, but that the American wastes a few years of their life sitting in traffic. And I know we all have those frustrating moments of road rage. And if you could even cut that in half and save people that amount of time, that's so much money that is produced in that saved time.
Oh yeah, one of the things that we work, because we work with tech suppliers as well, is and there's a multitude of companies that do this. Have you heard of parking sensors?
Yeah.
So the idea that they drill into the ground. So for those who are for uncovered parking spaces, these are the sensors they drill into the ground, and so it can tell me if that parking space is open or not.
There's some hotels that have that in their parking garages already.
In the garages, absolutely, but we're talking like open air stuff.
Okay.
So the idea, but the same sort of mindset is, if I can go on my phone and I know that there's a parking space available before I leave my house, that's going to cut down on the time I'm on the road because I know exactly where I'm going. If I can put in my GPS to the exact parking spot that I want to go to, or the exact lot, or know right off the bat, there's a 25% chance I'm going to actually get the spot by the time I get there, I might not go there, which saves on people being on. The whole idea is, we don't want people to be on the road more than they have to be.
Can you please put that at UNLV? That was the first thing that I thought of. Amount of times that if you have class after 10 a.m. at UNLV, you can kiss all the spots goodbye. Or you're sitting around driving for 15 minutes trying to find a spot. It's a terrible experience. Dude,
if you and a couple of students want to go protest to UNLV to put this in, I'm not going to stop you.
Yeah, I like the idea behind that. And what you had mentioned earlier is that you guys, that you'd reach out to me, is the partnership with the new Henderson Arena, which is housing the Silver Knights.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big inflection point as far as waiting, especially in Vegas, where it's a very event-dependent town. And the amount of time that people waste leaving an arena, especially UNLV basketball, if you're listening, and you waste an hour in the parking lot trying to leave. And if you could cut that even in half, then the amount of police officers don't have to be there, the amount of frustration, fights afterwards, people can maybe enjoy the last 2 minutes of a game and not have to leave 5 minutes before the game's over, or have that anxiety built up of, it's a 2-point game with 2 minutes left, but you have the fear that you're going to be stuck in the parking lot for 2 hours.
Oh no. And then to add to that, versus a lot of the other stadiums, especially here in Vegas, it's in a very residential area. So those residents want those people, the rowdy people, or they want those fans. And it's not a huge stadium. I think it's about 6,000 seats, but they want those fans, they want those people in and out as quickly as possible so it doesn't affect their lives. And so that's the whole idea. And that's why we were brought into that project, was they were looking for something. The public was definitely split. I think, to say it politically correct, the public was definitely split on putting that stadium there. And so the fact that our office is actually in the district, the CEO lives in the district, which is about maybe a mile from where the stadium is actually going up, just added the fact, like, we see these signals every day. We know that we can help not just the traffic that's going into the stadium, but the traffic coming out of the district, the traffic that's coming out of Green Valley Ranch. So putting the stuff there is going to, again, make things more efficient, make things safer. And also part of what we did was, help them with some modeling so they could see what exactly it was going to look like, which in the end run saved some dollars off the budget and allowed them to, some of the things that they're looking to do infrastructure-wise, they no longer have to do because they can see what adaptive is going to provide for them, which saved them I can't tell you what the amount was, but it saved a fair chunk of change.
Yeah, that's key, especially when you're saving taxpayer dollars or the private sector that can be put good use towards something else.
Exactly. And one of the questions we were asked on that interview that I sent you over was, what was the question? It had regardless what the question was, the answer was, the answer was that adaptive traffic, people are always going to look at, is traffic deterrence, right? Is it going to help people, promote people to come to the stadium? And what we came back with was, whenever you have an event like this, traffic is always going to have that preconceived notion of being a pain. Our main goal, especially with this project, is to make it so that it doesn't take away from the experience of going to the game. The last thing you want to do is, you had a great time at the game. Why do you want to be stuck in traffic for an hour after? It's why a lot of people will not go to the Strip for shows. I don't want to be stuck in the Strip. I don't want to be stuck with everybody leaving. I don't want to be stuck on Las Vegas Boulevard. Our whole idea is we don't want to detract from the experience. I don't know if it'll add to the experience. I don't know how many people are going to notice that, I can get in, get out. It's just like breathing. It should just be natural. Just part of doing it. It's part of how it's supposed to be. But if I ain't detract from it, that's a win.
I like that. The two big events that I was thinking is, I hope you guys could get partnered with the Raiders, because we all know that's going to be a huge traffic jam, especially because there's no close parking lots, and it's split across 15 different parking lots. And also EDC. There's a few times where I didn't even go to EDC because I was like, I don't even want to deal stuck in traffic for 3 hours afterwards.
Yeah, I can't go into too much detail on this, but I can tell you that there are definitely some eyes on the project that we're doing at for the Henderson Arena, as well as another project that we're doing as well that's actually a little bit bigger, with a similar type of entity. It's going to go across 14 different intersections. And so it's going to test what we're doing there, but at a much different, on an everyday level.
Yeah, it's all about scaling, right? You have to start small, and then you gradually build out more and more and more until you know that you can work on all the macro projects.
Right, and this is adaptive signaling is what we're working on right now. It's a big focus for us because it's used so well around the world, and it could be used so well here in the U.S. I think Washington recently launched it on their own, or launched a similar type of project. Adding something like this to your repertoire, to your city, makes it better. Adding smart transportation to your city makes it better. It makes your community safer. And there's so many different uses for it. Like you said, it's from, just a normal busy street to universities to commercial parking lots, residential communities. Some of the stuff that we work on for residential communities, such as pedestrian safety units. So the whole idea with one of the ones I'm talking about in particular is, it can measure how many times you cross the street. I'm big on examples, and you hit green, you cross the street, and it's already turned by you're only halfway through the street, right? That's dangerous, because somebody who's driving at a lot of speed, they see a green light and they're just going to go, but you're still in the middle of the street. So some of the technology we're using from a pedestrian safety standpoint is radar. So it will connect with who is going across the street. So it will hold the traffic until that person is safely across, or until that person is out of radar. Now that's on a busy street, but think about putting that in a community with kids. How much does that add to the value of that community by having that radar technology, especially new ones that are going up? I can make sure that my kid is safe. It's added safety value. We see it in cars all the time, right?
Yeah, and the technology that we're moving towards, Internet of Things, that's what I was thinking of while you're talking that, where you can have multiple smart systems communicate with each other. If the person has their phone, and it could communicate with the car, communicate with the sensors, and if there's a autonomous car driving towards someone and the right light's still red, it'll stop before the person will be warned through a vibration, or all these different communicative methods that technology can put forward.
Exactly. And that's why, sometimes it's, when you hear it from an engineer can talk engineerese to you sometimes. And I'm really big on taking something complex and saying it in layman's terms. Is, at the end of the day, I know I've said this a couple times already, but let's just make something safer. Technology is around. We have the tools to use it. Why not? Let's put it in. And how can we do it? Another thing that we work on is things that are like weight distributors. So basically, the idea is we put it like on the strip. You know how many times on the strip where people waiting to cross, there's overflow. So the idea is when that weight sensor senses it got to a certain level, it knows it's unsafe to have people there, and it will tell the signals it's time to turn.
So there's like a body weight sensor on the crosswalk itself, right, or underneath.
It can be done with body weight. It can be done with radar. It can be done a couple different ways. But that's the main point: is we don't want spillover. You know, how do we make something more efficient? How do we make it so that less pedestrians get hit?
And that's very common on the strip as well, especially every time I turn into work. I won't name the place, but there's always people in the crosswalk when I'm trying to turn into the specific hotel. And, you know, that's spread across most of the hotels just because of the infrastructure. And, you know, those hotels and those buildings aren't going to move. So you have to find some sort of adaptive technology to help assist with that.
There you go. Exactly. You use the word. I got you to use it.
Boom. Am I being punked? Am I being recorded?
Played.
I like that. And so, okay, so we have under control the adaptive traffic systems. Are there any other technologies that you guys work with?
Yeah. So, I mean, that has to do a lot with pedestrian. Another thing that's huge is actually driving. So something that we've been working on producing has to do with wrong way detection. So the whole idea is people who, especially here in the strip, where they get drunk one night, they get on the freeway the wrong way, and they're driving, and those are really high death rates. In fact, I was doing market research the other day, and I think it was for every crash that has to do with wrong way, 1.3 it results in 1.34 deaths, versus a normal crash results in 1.14. So it's got 1.1. So it's 0.24 more deaths per crash.
And that might not seem like a big number, but when you're referring to deaths, that adds up once you start getting on larger,
that's 24 more people for every 100. That's 24 more people, and so I mean that's 24 more people that don't have to pass. And so the biggest issue with that is usually has to do with detecting when the person gets on, or deterring the person from getting on in the first place, alerting law enforcement. So our whole idea with wrong way detection is how can we get all the parties who need to know as fast as possible. And so that's one of the other projects that we're working on as far as safety goes and road work goes. On a more lighter note, something that we're doing, one of the first projects that we did, not the first project, but a project we did with RTC this past January, was they produced an event called Go Nevada. Go Nevada was a one-day conference the day before CES. That had to do, we brought in executives from other transit agencies, Department of Transportation. We brought in people from the private, so Uber. What was the other one that was big? Uber, Cox, a couple people like that. The LVCVA. We brought these people to one location to talk about the future of mobility and how Nevada is pushing it. And then the other part of that was creating a live event site where people could do live demos and see it. The RTC has said, or we've talked with the RTC, that they might not do that event every year. And so we've been talking with them to do our own event in January. So as long as CES happens as planned, we should be happening as planned as well. And we've already been talking with the city, and we've been guaranteed, while we're still waiting on some specifics, we've been guaranteed a whole street for live demos.
That's fantastic, making Vegas a mobility hub.
Exactly, and it already is, but we just want to really push the envelope. You have people coming in from CES. Hopefully, you have people coming in for CES with COVID, but making that whole space like a must need for these professionals to come in and put business here. We've already seen it happen. One of our colleagues, Dan Langford, was part of the team that helped bring in Aptiv and Waycare here to Vegas, and you might recognize Aptiv from the Lyft. They do the technology for the autonomous lift cars on the strip.
Okay, there are a few. There's like a bus too, I believe, that it's an autonomous. I forget the name for it.
Yeah, it was they changed names. It was it's the one. It's the one that famously got into an accident on the first day.
And there's also a few autonomous taxis too, I believe, because I know I've seen when I've been walking up down the strip, there's a taxi, and on the back it says that this is an autonomous vehicle.
Yeah. Right now, I think they're still level. Don't quote me on this. I think they're level. There's a level autonomous. It goes from 1 to 5, and then hopefully I didn't get that wrong, or I'm going to hear about it later. With 5 being completely autonomous and 1 being very little, if at all.
Yeah, more like 90-degree angles and straightaways, and less like subversive to
More that it's more has to do with the person behind. That there's a person behind the wheel who can take control.
Okay.
So, for example, you doing cruise control is a level of is a level of autonomous. But you still have full control of the car. You have to be completely aware. You can't just let the car do whatever it wants. Versus there's some Teslas who I think are like level 3 or level 4 who can just like you put in a location and it will go. It'll change lanes on for you. And
yeah, you ever seen that YouTube video of the Asian kid that was sleeping in the Tesla and was going like 80 miles per hour on the highway?
No, but I know what I'm doing after this.
Yeah, it was a positive video. It had like almost 1 million views. I remember seeing on Twitter. But there's also numerous videos out there of people just being like, you're not supposed to be sleeping, but people still take advantage of it just because the technology seems to be increasing at a faster rate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Again, my background is not transportation, and since joining this group, my eyes have just been open to, wow, there has to be a guy to do that, or wow, there's a whole organization run to this. I don't know if you've heard of RTC Fast, and I forgot what FAST stands for, but FAST basically runs, is basically the eyes, ears, and operations for the RTC. And so if you ever get a chance to visit their headquarters, I highly recommend it, and walk into their control room. It's like an episode 24. There's screens on the wall. Everything's going on. Nothing's recorded. It's just like a window into what's going on in town at all times. And it's like, wow, there's somebody doing this. Or the signs, or the stop signs. Somebody has to put those stop signs together. Somebody's got to put the stoplights together. Those little control panels used to jump on as a kid by intersections. Somebody's got to go in there and turn stuff on, take stuff off, plug things in. And so it just opened my eyes to like how big this industry really is and how much I as an individual take up on every given day.
It's the necessities of a society that are often overlooked or just taken advantage of because people don't realize how important it is for everyday life.
Oh yeah, how important it is for everyday life and how much I impact everyday life. I just got a new car. I'm super happy with it. And one of the coolest things about the car is every time I drive by a new speed limit, it tells me what the speed limit is on my car every time. So somebody's got to be able to put that together. And it's just, I don't know. I find it so fascinating. It's also, it makes what we do so crazy, so crazy, powerful. It's because, at the end of the day, would you like to make a profit all 100%? But what we do matters. What we do like makes the world around us better, whether we're, again, cutting on carbon emissions or we're preventing an accident, we're reducing that 1.24 to 1.2. That's 4 lives saved, right? I don't know if that's statistically significant, but to those 4 people it was. And that's the whole idea. And so you get behind it. So you get behind what you're marketing, you get passionate about it. And I love talking business. I love talking with people. And if there's ways you can connect people, connect worlds, fantastic. But if I can make those worlds safer, that's even better.
Right, that's for the brand, right? As we were saying earlier, that's the long-term view behind it, and it's going to take multiple projects and multiple lives saved to get to that end goal of being like the safe organization for transportation.
Yeah, it's a huge part of who we are. The name Ludian, a lot of people ask me what Ludian means. Ludian is the combination of the CEO Ian and his daughter Claudia and his son Luke combined together, because that's what Ludian represents to him. It represents family, represents the future, right? And that's what it represents to me as well. Is this shirt that I'm wearing right now. I've been working. The person who gave me the shirt, the promotion company that we used to get the shirt, was somebody who I have known in the community for years, who has been a huge impact on my life, and now I'm able to get back to her, and she's been able to get back to my business. I mean, it's working together at so many different levels. In fact, you know him as well. I shot him.
And for those listening, he's wearing it's like a maroon purple polo. It says Ludian. Underneath it says intelligence and mobility, which I'm assuming is the slogan.
Yeah, it is. That was a big part of me when we put in the logo, because no one knows what the hell Ludian is. Mm-hmm. So I need to have something in there that says we're a mobility company.
And when you read intelligence and mobility, that's just like it's like an icebreaker, because I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Exactly. I mean, I don't expect everybody. I mean, the people who know what it is, great. The people who don't know what it is, at least I gave them something to talk to me about. because otherwise, what the hell is Ludian?
Yeah, I like that too, because intelligence is the fourth like industrial revolution, right? You had the agriculture, then you had manufacturing, and then it was technology. And now we're moving into like the intelligence and information era. So that's just putting forward that you guys have your eyes on the future, and mobility is always changing.
Exactly, because not every solution that we provide is technology based. Because it doesn't always have to be. Sometimes it's the system, sometimes it's operations, sometimes it's, hey, how do we reorganize our organization so that we get stuff faster? It's called one of the things that we train is called TSMO, TSMO. Was it Transportation Systems Operations and Management? So technology is not always the answer, but when it is, we're there. But if not, you have somebody who understands what we're doing in order to make it happen. Technology
could be very confusing. And like I was saying earlier, even with an AV cord that has a circle end and I see a circle plug in, for some reason my brain's like, it doesn't work. And so you need people to advise you on that.
my favorite technology story was I was moving into a house in Reno and I was trying to set up the internet. And so I'm having trouble. So I call up the internet provider and she asked me what color my Ethernet cable is. And I ask her, what do you mean what color my Ethernet cable is? Like, what does that matter? She goes, sir, I need to know. I go, well, it's red. Well, I've never heard of no red Ethernet cable before. So it's just there's
so much misinterpretation that could be processed just through a simple conversation.
It is, and sometimes when I don't know if you're ever speaking to some of these guys who are really smart and really know what they're doing. It's like a second language.
That literally one of my previous guests, Jaden Treadup's going to school for computational neuroscience.
Oh yeah.
So I had a 2-hour conversation with him, and I feel like I held my own, but there were times where I was just like, fuck, how do I like propose a question to him that makes sense in his terms, because he's so concise. And a lot of these people who are finding their specialization within technology, they know how to communicate their thoughts in a very precise manner.
Yeah. Another funny story on the subject. So when I first joined Ludian, so Ian's from the UK originally. So Ian was stuck in the UK for about 2 weeks, my first month with the company. And so he had signed us up to be a sponsor for a local transportation chapter's luncheon. And so I went to the luncheon, and the luncheon was run by the water district, and he did a presentation. The whole presentation was on pipes, and he showed one pipe. The crowd would go ooh, and then he showed another crowd and the pipe, and he showed another pipe, and the crowd would go ah, and some people would laugh, and some people would go oh my god. At the end of the presentation, the leader came up and says, "Hey, what do you think?" I go, "Well, I saw a lot of pipes today."
You have to make it interesting somehow, right?
Yeah, so that's kind of like, from a marketing perspective, it's one of like the biggest challenges. How do you market something that you don't, or how do you promote something that you're not necessarily an expert in? And that's the whole idea is like, I don't know how to, I can't put something together. I'm not a transportation professional, but I can communicate what we do. And that's what's most important. I can communicate our value. I can communicate our mission. I can connect with somebody, connect with our community. Conversations like this, even though I'm going to be frank, you don't have like, somebody, you don't have 20 years as a podcaster, but I love doing stuff like this because I'm helping you grow a little bit, which is always
that's why I have my guests on here. I mean, I love giving information and spreading it to other people, but I want to learn for myself what's going on really.
Yeah. It's the best way to grow. Have you ever worked in trade shows?
I have not. I've volunteered a few times in high school and in college, but never officially worked. All
right. So this is $1 million lesson right here. The cheapest way to increase the size of your trade show booth, because some of these trade show booths are worth thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Millions. I mean, look at CES. CES is crazy. The cheapest way to do it, talk to your neighbor, go, hey, what do you sell? Fantastic. If I see anybody who comes to my booth who I think would be a good customer for you, I'll pass them over. Hey, by the way, here's what we do. Would you mind doing the same? Because now all of a sudden, I didn't create value for me. I created value for somebody else. The ones who are really good, what they'll do is they'll do that all across the venue, and they'll have people send them from all over the place. I used to do that. I used to clean up doing that. But it's all about, can I create value for somebody else? I haven't said this in so long, but I get a chance to say it right now. You know the old adage of wanting to sell a pen? You have how, people tell you, hey, sell me this pen.
Oh, you're talking about like Wolf of Wall Street and like the straight scene at the end.
Yeah, exactly. And so you would go, I'm going to pull out this pen right here. And you go, and you would start talking about the value of the pen. Do you have a pen? Supply and demand, yada, yada, yada. The question's changed today. The question is now turned like, hey, it looks like you need a pen. Why don't you borrow mine? And you borrow my pen and you play with my pen. I give you value. I've put the pen in your hands, right? Hey, listen, I can't give you that pen, but I can show you how to get your own. So before I do anything else, I gave you value first. Even if it's only for a little bit, I gave you value first. I gave you my attention. I gave you my product. I put it in your hands. It's not a supply and demand because I gave it to you. But I'm like, listen, I can help you make it more. I can help you. I can provide value to you. I can provide value to the people around me. It's about taking care of others before yourself. Not stupidly, mind you, but how do I provide value for somebody else for me? And that's same with intelligence. When you put content on social media, it's free. I'm giving you a peek into what I believe, into a peek of how we think, to a peek of what we spent years and years of school and experience and trials and tribulations to put together. I'm giving you a piece.
Yeah, I think that exact mindset is what Vegas is built on. You're providing value for someone right now, especially on the Strip. It's all about instant gratification, right?
Right.
You provide them good service, they give you money. You provide them a good show, and they give you like a networking opportunity. It's all about, like, I always called Vegas, it's kind of like a bad way to put it, but I always called it a what can you do for me right now kind of town. Yeah. Like, it's all about instant value.
Yeah.
But in the intelligence community, it's more about gradual value.
Yeah.
You're not providing me the pen immediately right now. Like in Vegas, I give you service, you give me money. That's literally within a few seconds, but you're going to put the pen in my hand, and then I'm going to have to learn over time how to attain that pen. So it's more gradual gratification. Good business development people, and I've always considered myself more business development than marketing. What they do is, you build a pipeline. I'm not going in, I'm not talking to you today to sell you tomorrow. I'm going here to keep a relationship with you for 6 months, for a year, and move on. But continually doing that, be able to continually put that out there. I hate being one of those guys say like, hey, you need something, I know somebody, or you should talk to this person. But when you start doing that a lot, all of a sudden you start realizing who's out there. One of our clients right now, again, I can't bring up their name, was introduced to me to a guy who I met networking, and I met him one time, and I'm like, dude, I like what you do. I tell you what, you don't need to give me any money. We have an event going on. I need somebody to talk about what you do. I know you just started your own consultancy. I don't know if it'll add anything to you, but why don't you come on? I provide that little bit of value. But I kept a relationship with him. And a year later, when I switched companies, switched everything, he comes over like, hey, listen, I have a guy who's one of my clients, but he needs you as well. And oh my God, it worked out perfectly. So, it's these little things, they add up because you never know what they mean to people. Buying someone's shirt. This is not a huge purchase for any stretch of the imagination. But I know how hard it is to get her, how hard it was to get to this level. So I'm providing that. I want to provide that value. And again, I don't know how we got to this on this tangent. I've always been known to give like Jeff Winger speeches or something. I've been on a community bitch. I'm sorry. But that, at the end of the day, that's what my job is to do. That's what marketers of this kind of thing is meant to do. Really, any marketer, any good marketer, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to tell a story. And whether it's a good story, whether it's a bad story, whether it's an educational story, it doesn't matter. You just want to tell a story. Mm-hmm. And just depends on the correct way to present that story as far as marketing, whether you're going to do it in person, you're going to do it through some sort of exhibit like a trade show, or if you're going to put it through social media, the outlets, or whatever different communication method, correct? Yeah, exactly. You want to have an idea of like what's going to do. Like, when I create a social media plan for our company, there is a direct message and everything for each platform. Letting some people in on, letting a peek behind the curtain. We really focus on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is one of my favorite platforms. It's the only platform that I use on an everyday basis, to be 100% honest with you. My Instagram is bare. My Facebook's kind of bare. But my LinkedIn's on point. And that's how we structure a lot of our content, because A, that's where our people are, and B, that's where, that's where we can really prove that we're thought leaders. As we grow as a company and as we grow with our projects, are we going to add more attention to what else is going on around us? Absolutely. And should we give them their own individual voice? Absolutely. But for now, we're really happy with putting our voice through, one particular platform, making sure it's well. We're closing on 500 followers for a company of our size with no paid advertising. I'm really happy with it. Organic growth is very tough.
Exactly. And majority of it's in our industry, which is even better. When I used to work for what always loved about content marketing, loved about this strategy, I learned this from EventMB. Our old sales deck, they would get something like 500,000 views on our website every month or something, some crazy high number. But the number I always looked at is from that high number, 75% were in a decision-making role. If you can do that, if you can produce that, if you can get to that level, my market's not all that big. There's only 50 states in the U.S. There's only so many countries. There's less than 1 million countries out
and so
there.
Decision-making role would be like a CEO, correct?
A CEO or whoever can, program manager, anything like that. What's cool about Nevada recently changed some rules where it used to be they could spend up to 50 grand without board approval. Now they can spend up to 100 grand to kind of speed some processes through. So that's just, that's kind of the bar. But yeah, it's just whoever needs to make that final signage. Those are the people who were, and then again, that was for the events industry. Those were the people reading their content. And again, the whole thing was you're not putting content on here to get people to buy today. You're putting on here to prove that, hey, leaders in your industry are reading this content. Mm-hmm. That's the same thing we're doing is, hey, leaders in our industry are liking our content. Leaders in our industry are paying attention to what we have to say. Hell, leaders in our industry we are connected with. That's like the most important thing for any consultancy. Anything you can do to provide value is the people you want to talk to. And this is really big for tech suppliers. We have a relationship with.
Yeah, no, nobody wants to yell into a void, right? Especially if the void is full of people that you don't want to be talking to.
Yeah, Vegas is a small town. Everybody kind of knows everybody, right? But not everybody can have a conversation with everybody, and those are the questions you're really looking for.
It's just the status levels. Unfortunately,
it's not even the status levels. Listen, I'm a diehard Raiders fan.
You're from Colorado. What?
I know.
How?
Family's from the Bay Area. Oh. So I grew up rooting for the Raiders, and I used to get my butt kicked in football practice all the time. So don't worry. I wore my Woodson jersey.
Oh, that hurts. I'm a diehard Broncos fan.
Oh, my God. This interview's over right now.
Turn it off.
Bronco fans are terrible. Just letting you know.
Oh, dude. That hurts my heart.
And this is another reason why this is another advocate for LinkedIn, going back on point, is I really wanted to work for the Raiders. Years ago, I really wanted to work for the Raiders. So I found some poor girl HR assistant on LinkedIn, and I probably hounded her respectfully for 6 months until she finally said, "Give me your damn resume." And then I got an interview, and then I was able to get the last stage. And unfortunately, the hiring manager left, or maybe fortunately, because I'm in the spot where I'm at right now, and I'm very happy. But it's getting to that level. I don't have to be a mover and shaker to get to the level I want to get to. I got there. I've talked to people just through LinkedIn. I've been able to connect with people, and a lot of times through the Raiders too, I hate to say. I've been able to connect with people just through LinkedIn, and now I have conversations with CEOs, directors, and I'm not anybody crazy. I'm not super important. I don't have, I'm not from some really famous family or anything like that. It's just I can do it, But the fact of the matter is, I have something. Do you have something to say? And then when you talk to those people, do you have something to say? We have something to say. I've been a big part of the chamber for the last couple of years. I've served on the board for Vegas Young Professionals for about 1.5 years, 2 years. I just recently left it. I'm still part of the organization, just recently left the board. But I love working the chamber because it gives me access to these kind of people. Take advantage of every resource you got. I've met the Raiders through the Chamber of Commerce. I've met leaders and the director of esports for the MGM. I've met him because I've been able to do something to the chamber, but I can get in touch with him. I'm not somebody crazy. And I can't remember how the heck we got on this, what the original conversation point for this was, but just kind of trying to loop it all back up. When you're looking for a consultant, when you're looking for somebody who can take you to that next level, you want to know, like, hey, if he doesn't have that person's direct contact, can he get them? And when he gets them, does he have something to say? And luckily we have that reputation. And that's why we work with partners like the RTC, Clark County, City of Vegas, City of Henderson. I got to make sure I get everybody. And others around, not just here in Vegas, but around the world. We really are an international agency.
Okay, that was my next question. Is I know you're based out of here, but do you have partners outside of the city?
Technically, we started in the UK, but yeah, we are. Our first official year was here in Vegas, and that's where we call our main headquarters. Is technically Henderson, but yeah, we work with UK. We work with those in the Middle East, We have partners in Germany. We have partners in, well, it's not Sweden, Switzerland. We have partners all around Europe. A few partners in Asia. Nothing in South America right now I can think of. We have partners in Canada, and then partners all over the U.S. So yeah, transportation, learning, education is not to one person. It doesn't belong to one nation. It doesn't belong to one city, one state. We just love the fact that Las Vegas in particular is so forward thinking that it gives us a platform to show the rest of the world, like, hey, if you don't feel comfortable testing it, that's okay. They'll test it for you.
Yeah, shit. I mean, we even have Elon Musk digging tunnels now. That's a different type of transportation, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the Hyperloop. I mean, that's going to be crazy being able to get to, I mean, not quite LA, but...
is that actually being built now? I know
I believe
it was paused so many different times.
I believe it's full. I mean, last time I read, it was full speed ahead. I know Tina Quigley just left the project, but other than that, it's full speed ahead, and that's going to be, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's showing us something can happen.
200 miles an hour, 150 miles an hour, I believe. Somewhere around that nature.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, it's going to be, we went and talked to, I actually from a different project, I knew one of the guys who they hired to help put together the rail and help construct it. And so he's telling me like how you have to build this loop because otherwise it's going to fly off the handle. It's just crazy the amount of speeds that technology is unreal. I didn't realize how smart people are until you never realize how smart people are until you're in the room with them.
Yeah. That's it's every day. I mean, shit, I'm sitting across from someone that's much more intelligent than me. So I'm learning.
Is somebody else in the house? I don't know.
That's something I love gaining information from people who are more intelligent, at least in a certain field.
You never learn if you're just talking to a mirror all day, right? So I don't really consider myself. I mean, you've done something I've always wanted to do. You've put yourself out there in a way that I wish I could, or wish I have done. But I look at you the same way. So I don't really consider myself smart or anything like that. Just different backgrounds. But if you can take those backgrounds and apply it to something else, let's do it.
Yeah. Mutual benefits to each person on the other side.
There you go.
We'll just put it in that terms. And so I do want to backtrack a little bit.
Sure.
Some of these more eccentric transportation methods, right? We talked about digging tunnels, hyper speed railways. Do your guys' technologies transfer over to some of these more eccentric methods?
Sometimes. Where it really comes into play is more the planning of it. So let's talk about the Virgin Hyperloop, for example. While we might not be part of the company that would put together the Hyperloop, what we might do with a city looking to do something similar would be, okay, it's got to have a hub. So how is that hub going to feed transit? How is that hub going to work with other mobility service companies such like Uber, Lyft? How are people going to get to it? Where are people going to park? Where's the traffic in and out of that spot? Are people going to be safe while they're there? What kind of security measures are put in place? The data coming out of that. How do we track that so we can improve upon it? Stuff like that, absolutely. The actual event thing itself, no. For example, I think one of the first things we talked about today was the autonomous shuttles that we're looking at doing with the GoMed project. We're not a supplier of autonomous shuttles. And while we work with a lot of different technology suppliers, it's kind of like an insurance state or like an insurance broker. Yeah, I would like to work with this person, but I'm put the best possible product for the job. We help with implementing the solution or help crafting what the solution is. We may not help produce it, but we're there to help you with every step of the way. It comes back to specialists. These guys are specialists at what they do. Mm-hmm. They have billions and billions of dollars to spend in R&D to put together these massive high-speed train railways. That's not us. But what we can do is we can communicate that to your members of your organization on how they need to run it, how they need to put it together, what data they need to be looking for, how to structure themselves so that when this thing is prepared 3 years down the line, you can just go, there's no problems.
Yeah, it's more of the grander, the idea behind it, and the pre-planning is almost just as important as the actual initiation of building the project itself.
And that's where a lot of the contract goes is the planning of the project. Before something like Adaptive even gets off the ground, there's got to be modeling, which we help take care of. There's got to be, we got to take data before. We have to make sure that organizations are prepared. There's a communication tree. We got to make sure that everybody in that tree is trained. That's actually a call I was on earlier today was, how do we set up an organization? When can we tell people, when you're putting in new technology, sometimes there's a fear that I'm going to lose my job to the robot. And that's usually never the case, because you got to be able to, it's not 100% by itself. Not yet, at least. Not yet, at least. There's a level of, you have to have somebody watching it. There's a level of, you have to make sure that, it's being tweaked the right way, making sure that we're getting the most out of what we're spending our money on.
Yeah, you guys are really touching and covering the forgotten aspects to building something that's very innovative or big. I know this is relevant to the city, but not transportation. The Raider Stadium, right? They've been building it for a little over a year now, but they've been planning it for like 3-4 years already. So you have to think of all the different aspects that went into that. Like
I've been very lucky enough to see some of the planning that they did for it before and after and during, and it is no small task. What they've put together in, I think, a relatively short amount of time, and in a place that's never experienced anything like this. Mm-hmm. As a Raiders fan, I mean, off topic, I'm sad they're leaving Oakland, but I'm glad they're coming here. But there's so much level of planning, so many different organizations. They have to communicate with so many people. Vegas is very weird in the sense where all these organizations, Clark County, City of Henderson, RTC, City of Las Vegas, they're all sitting like right on top of each other. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting the way they operate.
Yeah, the zoning features. I had the Clark County Commission on here earlier, and he was talking about all the incorporated and unincorporated areas, and how there's like 8 or 9 different cities within Vegas itself because of the different zoning and tax variations. And I'm sure there's a leader for each zone. So the negotiations
it's either great because everybody knows each other, so stuff gets fast tracked, or it's terrible because you have to go through so many
channels.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think what you guys are doing it's very, very innovative. Like I said, I always often overlook transportation itself. A lot of us, we just drive our car and go on with our business, but you forget about the buses that are going on, or the people riding bikes, or the people that are, flying everywhere.
And it goes on beyond just like the roadways. You touched on bikes, mm-hmm. right? Making sure that, when cities spend a lot of money on implementing new parks, right? They want to know the park's being used so that if that comes up in the future, that there is a budget there for it. So being able to count the amount of track, the amount of bikers that go through there. I mean, that's part of transportation, is who's riding this stuff. Where are they going? Honestly, it's one of the few positives that COVID has produced, if any, was besides the reduced carbon emissions, was the amount of the increase in bike traffic. It's very, very cool to see cities, close down streets to bikes or increase their bike lanes.
Yeah, I've actually, since the COVID pandemic happened, I think I've been to the park like 4 times, which is about 4 times more than I've been to the park in the last 10 years.
Oh, exactly.
So, like you said, it's the silver linings. And, I've rode my bike a few times. I even went down to the RTC and checked out a bike and rode around downtown, which I'd never done before. So we're opening our eyes up to the different transportation methods. And actually, speaking of transportation, something I saw the other day that I forgot even existed was trains.
Oh yeah, no, they're making I mean, this is the U.S. Around the rest of the world, trains are huge. Subways are a massive. I mean, look at New York. Mm-hmm. We're here where everything is so spread out. You can't get to a train station. It comes back to, where's the planning? If we're going to create a train station, how are people getting to that central hub?
And do you guys have railway technologies as well, outside of just the consulting and I guess like the analytic analyzation?
Yeah. So actually, how the CEO got started, he started in rail. So he started in UK. He started in rail systems. I would not do it justice talking about it, but yeah, that is one of our. If you look at our website, that's one of our focuses. Rail, airway is huge. Not necessarily stuff in the air, but how stuff on the ground works. Because again, everything is moving so fast, so quickly. You want it to be almost like it's breathing. You don't want to notice that technology is in play. You just want to know that it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, it's just autonomous. It's like background noise. It's just existing, doing what it needs to, and you can go on and go drive and get a cheeseburger at the store and not even realize anything's going on.
Like, you don't care if this mic is working. You don't care how this mic is working. You just care that it's working. Mm-hmm. It's not working. Now you pay attention to it.
Yeah, I think too, regarding trains, that we might see, like you said, a big comeback to it because of the supply supply chain disruption that happened due to COVID. And a lot of people are talking about returning to localism and building a lot of factories and different buildings within the United States. And you're going to have to be able to get to and from those very fast.
We'll definitely see. And one of the marketing things I did that we did with the onset of COVID was we started doing our own podcast. It was not really a podcast. It was more of a community conversations. The whole idea was to do kind of a roundtable with a couple of main people. And then something that was really open to the public. They tune in once a week and just talk and converse on a subject. We called it Coffee and Conversation. The first person we had on there was Paul Comfort, who was promoting his new book, The Future of Public Transit. And that was one of the things we talked about is once everything goes back to normal, what happens? Because, you're going to have people who don't trust getting on an airplane. Similar to the 9/11, they didn't trust getting on an airplane. People don't trust getting on a bus. People don't trust getting on a train. So how do we convince these people to do that? Or what can we do? Or how is transportation going to change? I think Uber and Lyft drivers saw that especially those who made this a career, saw that, wait a minute, it's really easy for me to get displaced here.
Yep, they were disrupted by the germs.
Yeah, and the fact that they're going, Uber and Lyft are both going towards autonomous driving. Maybe now they look at it and go, maybe I should find something different. Maybe I should go into podcasting.
Everyone's doing it. They sold out of mics actually during COVID on Amazon.
Oh, did they really?
Huge boom. We'll see who survives, but that's funny that you say that. And Elon Musk actually has been pretty vocal about autonomous fleet, and he wants to build his own autonomous self-driving fleet, I guess a few years down the road. And he's been vocal about displacing Uber and Lyft. And you even see Uber now has transitioned more to transportation itself in general and not just ride sharing. I
mean, I think the technology is definitely there. Where you get caught up is in the legislation. That was part, like I was talking about earlier, how Dan Langford helped one of our partners help bring in Aptiv here to Vegas. The biggest part he did was helping construct the legislation. How does the city work for something like this? If going a little off topic, one of the coolest things that we ever presented on, we were asked to present at a conference about the disposal of nuclear waste using autonomous vehicles. Because the idea was we want as little people exposed as possible, and we want to get it from point A to point B as quickly as possible, right? But where the issue comes with legislation is, let's say autonomous wise, there's an accident. So you're in the car and there's an accident, they kill somebody, yada yada. Who's at fault? Is it the person at fault, or is it the group at fault? Is the technology at fault? What's at fault? Because it's an autonomous driver. So I just found that those are questions that they got to ask, and I'm really curious to see what it is and which insurance company would actually do it. And I'm sure I'm talking to transportation professionals out there go, I know the answer. I'm like, well, post it below, type it below. See, I'm helping, man. I'm trying. But yeah, it's just like, you just don't think about it. It's something so simple. You're talking about something we're literally talking about nuclear waste, and we're talking about who's at fault. Or we're talking about the other thing we talked about was timesheets. It was like if the driver is driving, he's timed in, but if he's sleeping in the back seat while the car is driving, is he still clocked in?
I didn't even think of that.
It's just like, whoa, what? And it's so simple. So that's like where I see, going back to Elon Musk. He could probably do it. I'm sure he's got technology to do it. I'm sure with a little bit of R&D, he could figure it out. Autonomous shuttle, semi-autonomous shuttles exist. It's just, can he get somebody to bite?
I think with somebody of his status, he probably could eventually. I mean, he likes to stir the pot a lot, and now people just invest in him just because of who he is himself. But I know autonomous semi-truck driving was the big landing spot for Andrew Yang in his autonomous pitch moving forward.
I mean, no, the future is autonomous. There's no question about that, but it's not going to happen overnight because people aren't ready for it. Especially in this country, people are not ready for it.
Yeah, especially like you're saying when legislation steps in too, and how slow governments are, and they do that purposely. Yeah. They'll give companies time to figure out what they want to do, and maybe might not benefit the truck drivers themselves, but
and rightfully so. I mean, that's why that keeps us in business too, because now we're working with these companies on how to lobby or how to get them through the process. So that's great for us, but it's rightfully so. I don't want something brand new on the road right now that's commercially created. I want something that's tested, that fits regulations. I want something that is going to, it comes back to what our core values are. We want to create safety. Is what we're doing, is this safe? How safe? Is it really safe? There's a level of data protection attached to it too. If somebody hack it?
That's the biggest fear that I hear around self-driving cars is like, I don't want a self-driving car. What if Russia hacks it through their satellite and then they drive me into the ditch? Or some sort of misconstrued argument towards it. But that's always the big fear is hacking.
For the most part, it's pretty, most of the stuff's pretty safe. Obviously, there's those issues out there and you got to prepare for them. But it's how do you it's how do you convince a narrative? How do you explain that to people? It's not like, it's like, you've seen the things like flying taxis, right? That didn't exist when a lot of people were growing up. And people are, resistant to change. It's a big thing.
Yeah. We see that even more in today's world than ever. COVID kind of just came in and is the biggest disruptor towards technology and kind of the everyday living lifestyle.
Oh yeah, it's gonna lead to a boom in growth. I think it's gonna lead into a boom of innovation. It's unfortunate, obviously, for those who lost their lives to it. And it's not. I don't ever want to look at. I like to look at the silver linings of things, and I think there is a silver lining. There is a light at the end of the tunnel that we're going to come out of this with innovation. I think we're going to come out of this with companies realizing that something like this could happen. So a lot of people who maybe couldn't work remote are now working remote. I think there's going to be better work-life balance from it. I think there's going to be a bigger emphasis on communication, on working together, on working together on projects, working together to find solutions, on fast-tracking things. So, we were lucky the fact that our projects went through with the most part without a hitch. But we're trying to I just see so much growth and potential coming out of this dark time.
That's what I preach on Twitter probably every other day.
It's Twitter.
I'm a huge Twitter. That's my baby. I've been going through my own trial and error with social medias on trying to figure out what's the best marketing style for podcasts and trying to find my voice and algorithms and all these different things that give me a giant headache thinking about. But I harp all the time that this is the best rebranding opportunity personally for your personal brand and long-term vision, but also for multiple businesses to pivot and go a different direction to where technology might be more prevalent.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm excited to see where it goes. And so let's say technology moves forward, right?
Sure.
And now more people are working remote. There's more people that are getting online education. Less people are traveling and transporting. Would that be a fear towards the company if there's less cars or vehicles on the road?
No, to be 100% honest, less vehicles on the road is a goal. We're advocates of public transportation. We're advocates on less vehicles on the road because it's safer and it's better for the environment.
Okay.
So we're advocates of it. There's always going to be transportation. That's one of those things that's not going away. Infrastructure is not going away anytime soon. You still have to get from point A to point B. Until we become like the Matrix, we got to get from point A to point B. And just finding the way, maybe the method changes.
Mm-hmm.
You're still going to have bicyclists. You're going to still have people walking. You're still going to have people going to we look at it from this huge. Let me kind of try to make it a little bit smaller. We look at this from this huge, like a road network, right? How's it any different than going up and down the aisles at a shopping mall or at a grocery store?
It's a grid,
right? When we've talked with some event venues about, hey, listen, be able to track where these people are going. One of the coolest venues in town, I'm not going to say what we talked about, but one of the coolest venues in town, I think, if you haven't checked out yet, is Area 15.
Oh, I'm a big Meow Wolf fan. Okay. So I've looked heavily into Area 15. I haven't been able to go there yet, but something that I want to go to.
I was very lucky enough to do the Hard Hat tour with them before they went live, and then got a chance to see some of the other stuff that they're working on. We'll talk after this. I'll get you the right number to get her on to get them on the phone. But their whole experience is about being immersive. If you're going to an event to be immersive, well, you want to be able to guide people to those spots. You don't want a huge crowd in front of one attraction, right? You want to be able to move them somewhere else, and you want to be able to track them. then you want to be able to move them, lead them, yada, 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 yada. All this stuff plays in, and there's technology providers out there, but being able to create a plan to come in, I mean, that stuff's always going to exist. You see it at stadiums. The other guy we work with, a guy named Chris Barker, he used to do transportation planning for, I think he helped do MetLife. So yeah, I think it was MetLife. I know he did for a couple different NFL stadiums. Another big Raider fan, so that's why I love Chris.
I just know anything in New York, there's going to be a huge bottleneck wherever you go, like New York and LA. So you can imagine the necessity and need for those kind of people.
Exactly. So you're never ever, going back to your question, I don't think transportation is not going out of style. It's almost recession proof. It's like asking not one to put at. My dad had this friend who's a lawyer, and he's been telling him for years, he'd been huge into Yellow Pages, right? And my dad for years had been telling him to get a Google listing. And the guy's wife says, well, what happens if the internet shuts down? I said, I think you have other problems.
That was a fear at COVID in the beginning. Netflix and the internet providers thought that since everyone was at home, that there was a fear that the bandwidth might exceed the limit and really? That the internet was going to shut down. Obviously, it didn't happen, but
I don't know if I believe in that because everyone's on their phones anyways. So I didn't see that article. I probably should have paid more attention, but I can get sometimes a little bottleneck my own self. But it's not going out of style anytime soon. People got to get from point A to point B, and they got to do it, and they got to figure out how to do it.
That's good. That's very good to hear, especially that climate change is going to be the biggest mission going forward for most companies, and people want to work for a company that's reducing their carbon footprint. And so if that's your active goal, then you're going to have a lot more clients.
Like, I don't know what it looks like today, but did you see the LA skyline when everything was cleared up?
Completely clear. It's beautiful.
My God. It was unreal. I'm wondering if we're going to have a hotter summer because there was less emission in the air.
Huh.
Because the sun would shine. I don't know. I don't know the science behind it, but I'm wondering if we're going to, because it already feels pretty hot, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's baking out here.
But yeah, that's the main point is we're definitely green friendly. We're pushing for those kind of solutions. If you know where you're going, less time on the road. I mean, that was one of the biggest things when GPS became available. You're on the road less, right?
Right. That is true.
Except when Siri gives you a wrong turn.
Can't we go back to the days where I could just print out my MapQuest map and just travel there?
Dude, I used to serve pizzas. I don't know how. I used to deliver pizzas in college. I don't know how people before GPS did it. I have no idea.
Dude, we used to go and print it out and try to figure it out. You probably spend more time figuring it out, but you definitely feel more accomplished once you get there.
Nah, man. give me my GPS right now.
He's like, I'm going forward. I'm pushing everything
absolutely.
forward. Well, Zach, it's crazy. This has already been hour 22.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude, pushing through it. I love it. But I think I'm gonna end it here.
All right.
I've covered everything transportation, at least I could think of, outside of maybe the airways.
I tell you what, we'll come back, and next time we come back when this thing's all over, I'll bring Ian as well.
Yeah, so we talk technicals as well.
We talk really technical.
I'm into that. I love figuring out how things work, even though I might not have the slightest clue on even how to verbalize what I'm thinking, but I'll figure it out.
And dude, our door is always open. We were talking with, I met part of Vegas Young Professionals. I met somebody who worked with the Red Cross. It was not the Red Cross. Maybe it was Red Cross. I don't know. One of those organizations. And she was like, how does something work? And I kept giving her the pitch, and she's like, how does it work? I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm not going to do it for you. So our door is always open to come on in. We'll spend, I think me and Ian are both under the impression that I always have 15 minutes for somebody. So if you have a question about, how something works or what we're doing or why we're doing it, anything that we can answer, we'll answer. So always feel free, I'm sure you'll post our website, so I'm not going to plug LudianUSA.com or anything like that.
Oh, wow, I see what you did there.
But we're always open to answer any questions.
Yeah, I would actually love to come by once it's a little bit more safe. Once we get to maybe phase 3 or phase 4 or whatever, come by the office and just sit down, have a chat, and grab some coffee.
All right, perfect. It sounds good to me.
That's a deal. I always have 2 questions before we go.
Sure.
So the first one is, the year's 2030. What do you see the vision of Ludian USA looking like?
Ludian USA, publicly traded international conglomerate, supporter of Star Wars and all things. Actually, I just see us being a super successful. We're a young company, but I see by the time we're there, we've built a great network of friends and relationships, and that those who have been with us to the journey so far are only going to reap the benefits 10 years from now.
I like that, especially Star Wars.
Oh, the owner is a huge Star Wars nerd.
Last question is, what does Las Vegas mean to you?
Las Vegas means to me change and growth. I have gone through so many changes personally, professionally. I've gained family. I've lost family. I think if I categorize anything for Las Vegas, for better or for worse, it's change and growth.
I like that. So you're actually the first person to ever say that.
Really?
Most of the time it's either home or opportunity, but change and growth it's unique.
There you go.
All right. No copycats for anyone who's listening who might come onto the show later.
That's right. I'm deep.
Zach, I thank you for coming on. You already plugged Ludian USA. Would you like to plug any of your social media accounts if they'd like to get involved with you personally?
Definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. Name is Zachary Zolowicz, Zolowic as in cat, Z as in zebra. I was Z squared growing up, so there's a nickname for you. Not ZZ Top, Z squared. Connect with us on LinkedIn. Follow us on LinkedIn. That's where you get a lot of our best news and how you can always reach me. Other than that, looking forward to what comes next, to following the rest of your content, finally listening to everything now that I've gone through it my own self and can just kind of sit back and relax.
I appreciate it. Moving forward, like I said, this platform is to be a discovery platform for Vegas, to see the variety in Vegas that's not just dedicated to reporting on the Strip.
No, awesome. I think it's a great format, and thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you for coming on. Thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you next time.